Hey, I'm Rutledge,
Hey, I'm Connor.
and we're Friends Stream Sports. We're real friends who talk about real sports in real time. And Connor, you got to really vamp because I have to update the Twitch stream.
Oh, Rutledge. I hear you, man. That Windows 7 is not even Windows 10, just
Nope,
based off the numbers.
nope. Connor,
You all
I
right
shame
there?
Connor on his sleep. Yeah, we're good. We're good. Did you know that Twitch has a really cool app that you can manage and everything on your stream on your phone? So when your phone is a better device than your computer, you can do everything mobilely.
I figured that. Rutledge, one of the neat things that Mark Zuckerberg did, let's, give a little head nod to Mark Zuckerberg, is he was the first guy, one of the first guys that said, the internet is heading towards phones and not computers. So we need to make sure that everything is set up for phones. And I know that Mark Zuckerberg does not own Twitch, but to say that he did not have an impact on Twitch would be not right.
That would 100% be not right. By the way, you know what's not right? That you have a pair of pants next to your head. Where are you, Connor? And are you wearing
I'm in
pants?
I'm in Boston,
Oh, you are?
cheering on those Red Sox and those Patriots and those New England Revs and the BC Eagles.
In the BC Eagles. Are you wearing pants?
I'm in Boston and I'm cheering on the Patriots and the Red Sox and the Revs and the BC Eagles.
All right. Unconfirmed. Connor's not wearing pants, everybody. Unconfirmed here. Put that out on the podcast and smoke it.
Rutledge, how do you feel about my pink gingham shirt, though?
It's very business guy heavy. You got on a plane, you traveled through an airport. I feel like now I feel like now I just need to join you on the road as Anna Kendrick in heels. You know,
Pardon me?
you get my movie reference? Have you ever watched?
Say that again.
I feel like with the way you're dressed and the pants on the hanger and being out in the hotel and on the road and flying, I feel like you're George Clooney and I guess I'm Anna Kendrick and we're just up in the air.
No doubt. I feel you.
Absolutely. So, Connor, as you're out there in the world and I'm here in my world and we continue to trudge on Friends Stream Sports, not in person, we have a lot to talk about. Our show tonight, of course, is going to be once again dedicated to football, but we need to start where it sort of counts in a different type of football in the soccer world, because we here want people to know that the MLS season is still going very strong. So how does it feel to be in the land of the Supporter Shield favorites and also the East leading divisional New England Revolution?
Oh, I think as it relates to MLS, it's, there's a large disparity between the haves and the have-nots. I think that you've got the Revs who are, they're running away with the Supporter Shield, and they are running away with everything. They're running away with the number one seed in the East, and they're just doing a great job there. And you've got the Seattle Sounders out west that are continuing to play well. And you've got a variety of other, a few other teams. But then on the other side, like, especially if you were to take the Eastern Conference, for example, Orlando City, who lost, who I'd love to hear your thoughts on Orlando City. The Orlando City Lions are now third in the East, and they're definitely not as good as New England. Nashville is now second, and they're not as good as New England. NYCFC has leapfrogged Orlando City, and they're third, and they're not as good as New England. So, it's just very interesting to watch all of these haves and the have-nots as it relates to MLS, because let's remember, Rutledge, there's a big crown out there, and that's called the CONCACAF Champions League.
It's definitely a big obstacle for them to conquer. I want to kind of put out for the haves and have-nots to everyone, and to know that for a non-MLS fan, the sport is actually very fluid and it changes in who's good and who's not. New England being that they have 56 total points. Last place in the East in 14th place is Toronto, who's usually a dominating force. They have 18 total points. New England with their 56 still has 10 total points over Sporting Kansas City when looking at the Supporter Shield, which, if you don't know what the Supporter Shield is, that is the regular season championship victory for MLS. In regards to where the conference is going, you're right. The haves is New England for sure. They have plus 18 goal differential. They have 56 total points. They have won 17 games. No one's in their league. It's going to be just them in the playoffs, and everyone's going to have to catch up to it. This is where maybe we have this debate this evening, don't believe in the MLS playoffs. I don't like it. I don't understand why we have it. I think it's unnecessary. But I digress as I go over to our Orlando City Lions. Orlando City is getting bludgeoned right now. If we look at their last 3 games, and these are all September games, which happened 3 games within 9 days of each other. It was 3-0 against Atlanta, 4-2 from Montreal, and then 3-1 against Philadelphia. So it makes us nervous as Orlando City fans to see them sort of start to slip as the season goes all the way down until their last regular season game is November 7th against Montreal, who just beat them. They play Montreal 2 more times on the schedule. Plus they have Nashville. Plus actually this Saturday they have New England, with New England actually twice on the schedule. Plus Nashville is, like I've already mentioned. Montreal's twice. Their easy games would be DC, Cincinnati, and then Columbus, who's sort of a coin flip. So in 2 folds, but as we look for Orlando to go towards the playoff, it is number 1, nerve-wracking, and number 2, kind of scary and doubtful to see what the Lions are going to do, as 4th place and 8th place are only separated by 4 points. So the margin for error in the East is super duper tiny to where you don't have room to slip. So I can definitely see, if it's not Orlando, someone in the Eastern Conference is going to fall their way out of the playoffs as someone else heats up.
Oh, 100%, Rutledge. I think that, we had a ton of good results from Orlando City early on. We had folks leave, folks get injured. Daryl DK was kind of like coming back, but was he? And then it became not a thing, and I think for Orlando City, like these are some very critical games coming up, because by the time Orlando City plays its next home game on October 2nd, there is a chance, statistically speaking, that they could be below the playoff line.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's all the big opportunities and all the big results at the beginning of the season could be all for naught here as we get to the business end of the season. And that would not be good for Orlando City. That would not be good for Orlando City fans. There are some big questions, though, as it relates to Orlando City. And I think that, I think that obviously with the transfer window closed now, we have who we have. And it's going to be about getting Pato back healthy, being able to score goals, getting the defense right, because as you read off those score lines, none of those score lines were good on the defensive end. There weren't any 1-0 games. And just bringing some good energy back to the team.
Yeah, there's got to be a lot of good, solid momentum going out of this team. I will say, though, the talent is there, where in years past we were worried about the talent not being on the bench. FIFA 22 released a lot of different top 10 players for MLS leagues, and MLS on their social media released a lot of these images. Every poll of a top 10 player for FIFA 22 at least included an Orlando City player. And I think the all FIFA MLS lineup had, and I know for sure Nani, if not two Orlando City players on it. So the depth is there. I think it's very interesting to see what Oscar Pareja is going to do to manage this stretch, as something's wrong. We don't know what it is. We can't seem to put our finger on it. You know, this kind of feels like, Connor, we were talking about the playoffs earlier this year in basketball, to where you just watch a little bit sort of fall off and you think, all right, such and such has got to be hurt. For example, the Lakers, it was LeBron was more hurt than he was. With other teams, it's other players were more hurt than they were. So something just feels a little off with this Orlando City squad when they have too much on paper to sort of be where they're at.
No doubt, man.
I
And
want to say,
well,
go ahead.
They'll turn around.
Hopefully they'll turn around, but I want to segue into another topic, just a short thing. This was announced today, and I am reading this from Jeff Carlisle, and that is
Maybe
basically.
Carlisle? Are you sure it's not Carlisle?
I'm sure it's not Carlisle.
I'm just curious.
Your bell doesn't pass TSA. I know it doesn't. What is really happening out there is announced today, MLS and La Liga MX come together and they're revamping the Leagues Cup to where it's going to be a 47-team tournament, 29 from the MLS and 18 from Liga MX will pause their season for 1 month in order to compete in a group stage / knockout World Cup style tournament. The winner of this will guarantee a round of 16 spot in the CONCACAF League. So I think this is I know there's some controversy about how big of a tournament it's going to be, but I think this is a really great way to get American fans to buy into Mexican teams and get some sort of across the border, more rivalry and camaraderie, as I think we should see the continuation of the growing of CONCACAF as one big unity here in the world. In my opinion, CONCACAF is not as big of a deal as you look at like the Euros. We did so much coverage on the Euro tournament when it dropped, but I think any little bit that on this side of the pond we can do to build our brand will help us be taken more seriously as we get hopefully this conference to be more World Cup recognizable.
Rutledge, who is the third country in CONCACAF that needs to be more World Cup recognizable?
Canada.
Good, you got that answer right. Who's the fourth country that needs to be more World Cup recognizable?
I don't know, Connor. I feel like this is a trap. It's a trap.
No, it's very interesting, right? CONCACAF. My theme for tonight is that there's a large disparity, and I'm sorry for our viewers that might see my light as my head moves. There's a large disparity between the haves and the have-nots. And, you've got U.S., you've got Mexico, you have Canada that's now really coming on strong with players like Kyle Larin, Alphonso Davies, a variety of MLS players that are doing a great job. One of the fun things about CONCACAF Champions League, and, as an American, it's always great to see all the spots that MLS gets. But, it'd be fun to maybe have a chance for Jamaica to get another team in there, or a team like Panama. Let's remember, America did not qualify for the last World Cup.
Right.
So, not to say that it's just American players playing in MLS, but there might be some other players in some other leagues to give some good opportunities too.
So I think it'll be good. I think you think it'll be good. Who is the other team that you were mentioning that needs some more World Cup exposure, Connor, in CONCACAF?
Jamaica's always strong. I would say maybe a combo between Jamaica and then Panama. Panama was in the last World Cup, and we haven't heard from them lately.
Right. So there we go. All right, well, that sums up our soccer talk for this week. We're going to do a little bit of baseball talk. This is where, and Connor, I'm just going to kind of feed you the standings for Major League Baseball right now. We don't have too much to talk about, as baseball is exciting, but it's just a day by day. This is like trying to grow your credit score. There's not much change, but there is change. We know right now that San Francisco and Milwaukee and Los Angeles have all locked in playoff spots. No division is under wraps, as San Francisco and the Giants keep swapping in first and second place. The Giants and the Dodgers. Milwaukee has a 10.5 game lead over St. Louis. Atlanta only has 3 over Philly. You have Houston still has 7 over Oakland. The White Sox still have 10.5 over Cleveland. And then Tampa Bay leads the American League East. But the wildness of that is that the wild card for the American League is still a toss-up between Boston, Toronto, and the Yankees. So no matter how far we get into this baseball playoff run as we close out, it feels like we're still kind of telling the same story week in and week out until we get locked into the playoffs.
Yeah, Rutledge, it's, you're right. You've got the powers of the NL West versus the powers of the AL East. And I think as we're telling this baseball story, that's where you look at. For any of our listeners or viewers out there that, maybe want to think about, okay, who should I focus in on, right, as it relates to potential World Series teams, you're probably focusing in on the Rays, the Yankees, and the Red Sox, or you're focusing in on the Giants, really just the Giants or the Dodgers. I guess that the Padres had a fight between Manny Machado and Fernando Tatis Jr. the other day, which does not bode well for a team sport like baseball. So you've really got, we have playoffs, but it's not playoff. It's like the first round of the NBA playoffs where we kind of know who's going through. No, I could definitely see the winner of the NL West and really the main team standing at the end of the NL West playing against the main team standing from the AL, who should be from the AL East.
I agree with you on that. That's kind of where baseball is looking. There's not much different happening right now. I think it's going to be, the way I see it is the same way as you put it, but my feelings are, it's all about who in the National League is going to end up having to play a second place division, Dodgers or Giants, because whatever team loses that is going to be out for blood to just get themselves right back to the championship game for the National League to then face off against their division rival. At least that's the way I view how this is going to go. I don't see anyone stopping it. Here's an unsolicited question. We mentioned earlier in the season, Milwaukee was cruising because of a product of their division. So given that they have a strong lead in their division, but their division is down, do you see them as being a threat in the playoffs, or do you see them as something less?
No, I think that in the NL, it's going to be the Dodgers or the Giants. That's a hot take. The Brewers are, there's not as many good quality teams in the NL Central. The Brewers don't have the studs. They don't have the horses. They don't have the payroll. Really the Dodgers should be running away with the NL 100%. The fact that the Giants are still involved is very, that's great for the Giants, but let's just kind of remember that, the Dodgers are a really quality team with a ton of really good players.
I will say, though, out there, Cody Bellinger was put on the injured list recently for the Dodgers.
You said Cody Bellinger. It's Cody Bellinger, but go on.
Cody Bellinger, either way, is still put on the Dodgers injured list. And I feel like you should have done that dang with a lobster roll in your hand or something. Or a Sam Adams.
I wish, man. I had fried clams tonight. They
how
were
was
so
that?
good.
Oh, that sounds good.
They were so good. I went to a place called the Salty Girl.
Were there any girls there that were salty?
No, actually our waitress was very kind, so she did not fall in line with the theming of the Salty Girl.
Must be she must be new.
No doubt, no doubt.
She must be new. So either way, injury on the Dodgers, but we'll see. We'll keep watching for baseball. We're getting there. We are 9 days left. So I feel like next Tuesday's show, we're going to have a little bit more baseball to digest. But Connor, I need us to move on to college football because I have something to share that has happened. And I didn't realize when it was happening how much it meant. But then watching the digest and the exploitation of it, and then reading other people's reactions to it, I have seen the new way of college football. And it's not something that's new because I used to see it with a PlayStation controller in my hand as you program that BCS A+ schedule so you can win games. Auburn and Penn State at a whiteout in Happy Valley with the fans going crazy, playing a high-level team late on a Saturday night with the pom-poms and everything is what we need more of in college football. I think there is just that has proven that, in my opinion, the neutral, and I know we could also liken another example was Georgia versus Notre Dame about 4 or 5 years ago when Georgia went up to Notre Dame.
Or Georgia versus Clemson. Or Georgia, Georgia
well,
Notre Dame. Yeah.
But my thing is that it's a home game. And when we saw it with Georgia Notre Dame, because they had just never played and it was two obscene teams kind of coming together. But Auburn, Penn State, you get in like a bowl game, possibly. That's an Outback Bowl matchup waiting to happen, possibly even this year. To watch a home game in the second week of September where it's two big name programs going at it with, while I think Auburn may be a little bit overrated this year, I think that's what college football needs to be more about. It reminded me of playing PlayStation when you and I would sit in my apartment in Orlando and you be this team and I be this team. And then you watch the two teams descend. But because of the way that scheduling has been for so long, it doesn't be scheduled. So I like that the college football playoff has kind of forced us to have these resumes on our schedule. There are other big games coming. I know that you say Georgia Clemson, but that's a neutral site game in Bank of America Stadium. And there's something different about if that game, and of course they played it this year. Other years they played it at home, but there's something different when it's a home and home. Or there's something different when you take two obscene teams like we had Oregon, Ohio State, and you make them slam against each other. But there was something about this past Saturday night game that just felt different.
Well, Rutledge, what do you think about that? What do you think about the home and home versus, being able to do a Notre Dame versus Oregon in Denver? And I'm just throwing that out there. I'm throwing an East Coast team from a West Coast team in Denver because, we got to think about the thing that we're not talking about, and that's money. There's ticket sales involved, there's TV rights involved, there's all these things involved. I'm just astonished that Penn State and Auburn were able to pull this off. I think that's very telling of the future of college football. That we should not think twice about. And I think that we need to be very cognizant of that. And I think that we need to remember that as the playoff potentially expands from 4 to 12, we might get some of those games, but if they're early season, they might devolve into not being as important. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I think you have to have some of those games on sort of the marquees of them, and they have to exist. I will say you bring up a right thing of logistically, that was amazing that they pulled it off, considering for those that don't know, State College, Pennsylvania is not very much near a populated area. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere. It's hard to get to. So for them to pull that off was huge. What do I think of the idea of taking Denver's Mile High Stadium and throwing in two teams, one from the East and one from the West? It doesn't feel like the pageantry of college football, but it feels like the money side of college football. because you're right. That makes 100% perfect sense to have Oregon play Florida. I'm going to change your team, but Oregon play Florida right in the middle of the country, two big name teams. But there's a reason why the national championship game, besides being for a championship or not the Rose Bowl, but other games at other stadiums feel different than taking someone in their home stadium and hosting them and playing a different opponent. Now, the only thing about the home and home that I'm a big believer in is you have to have home and home with big name teams. For example, that Oklahoma Tulane game, and even though horrible things happened to New Orleans this year, was originally supposed to be in Tulane. And Tulane has built their own stadium. They no longer play in the Superdome. There's something underwhelming about having the big name program that is Oklahoma coming to Tulane's FBS, football, their FBS qualifying stadium, but not the high caliber that you have if you were to play it in Oklahoma. So I think for big name programs, it works really well. For other programs, it feels just like small programs playing each other. I know the money factor is huge with TV rights and bowl games. And if that's the case, if we just want to have neutral games, line up every single neutral game in four stadiums. I'll give you four stadiums that I think are the best places to host neutral games based on how new they are and where they are. My four stadiums.
Is this a halftime hot take brought to you by Daddles?
This is not our Daddles halftime hot take. This is a Rutledge's rant take brought to you by college football. But here are four stadiums that I think you need to go and host neutral site games if you really want to go and make some money and then bring people in. If you were to have Star Neutral Site experience. Number one, Mercedes Stadium in Atlanta. Showing that it's a very good sports venue that can easily host games.
Mercedes-Benz Superdome. Ding. Yeah. You messed that one up.
No, Mercedes-Benz Superdome is in New Orleans, and it's changed names in New Orleans. Ding. It is no longer the Mercedes-Benz Superdome.
Who's the new title sponsor, Rutledge?
We're going to Google it, Connor. No, I was going to say a really bad joke.
On the pod.
Superdome.
We super love dead air.
The Caesars Superdome in New Orleans. And not Caesars. I'm really hoping that Caesars the casino, not Caesars the pizza.
It is Caesars the casino.
The Caesars Superdome, the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. So Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. AT&T Stadium in Texas, just because Jerry's World has been very, very impressive. This one you're gonna like. Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, I think, needs to start being a massive college football stadium. And then I don't know, SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles.
You missed it. You missed one.
Which one? I said four.
How can you not? Rutledge. Oh my gosh. Rutledge. Are you listening?
Yes.
Can you re-put your earbuds in?
I always do.
How can you not place a college football neutral site game not in the Rose Bowl?
Because the Rose Bowl, in a way, is not a neutral site college stadium. It's too embedded in tradition that it is. When we had the playoff there and it was Georgia versus Oklahoma, it just felt weird. It didn't feel like it was the Rose Bowl. The Rose Bowl is designed for January 1st. It's designed for one thing and one thing only. The Rose Bowl is someone's home field. When USC was playing in the Rose Bowl, that was a home game for them. So the Rose Bowl
the Rose Bowl also hosted a World Cup final,
which is amazing. That's nothing.
So which would be the second thing that the Rose Bowl was all about.
Sure. So I think that if you're going to use it, if you're going to do true neutral site games, all about the money, use NFL stadiums and use them in those big cities with the new stadiums designed to just bring in money. But I think the way college football should go.
Oh, Rutledge. Oh, we need to do a whole episode on this because we are not in agreement on this at all.
No, I think that there was something magical about what happened on Saturday, and it just felt different. Maybe it was because the SEC, it just means more.
Would it feel different in SoFi? Would Penn State Auburn feel different in SoFi?
Yeah, it would totally feel different in SoFi. Wouldn't you? Here's a good classic example. How would how would Oregon versus Auburn, the championship of Cam Newton, felt if it was in Auburn, Alabama, or if it was in Eugene, Oregon? Or what if Dabo Sweeney got his wish when Clemson lost to LSU and that game was in Death Valley? Because it pretty much should have been, because even though it was a neutral site, it was in New Orleans. And you and I both know in New Orleans, if the Tigers are playing, there is a long, long purple and gold line out of Cafe Du Monde with a couple Clemson tourists.
But what if the Clemson LSU game was played at the Rose Bowl?
Then it would be considered just a college football game at the Rose Bowl, but it wouldn't, it's different. The Rose Bowl is its own anomaly. There's neutral sites, there's home sites, and then here's the Rose Bowl. The Rose Bowl, quack, quack. The Rose Bowl is its own halo. It's like the light above your head, Connor. The
You want to
Rose
hear
Bowl
my
is the,
halftime?
yeah,
The Rose Bowl is the greatest stadium in America.
I agree. That would be my agreement in that.
Well, why aren't we playing great college football games in the greatest sports stadium in America?
Because every championship should be played at the Rose Bowl. That's why. The Rose Bowl deserves more. It doesn't just deserve to be schlepped through just an average, Saturday night game.
Okay. Well, you didn't say that before.
Well, that's what I mean. The Rose Bowl is special.
It super is.
Yeah, I'm not discrediting the specialness that is a Rose Bowl. I'm actually more crediting it and making it more special.
Okay, I feel you.
Yeah. Is there any other college football to talk about, Connor? Because I feel like this is our whole segment. I mean, there's lots of college football to talk about.
There is a lot of college football to talk about. I think Rutledge would love to hear from you. If we're going to keep talking about the SEC, in your opinion, who's in the driver's seat right now for the SEC East? Because neither Georgia or Florida have seemed to really take control.
I think it's going to actually be Florida is more in the driver's seat. And once again, it's amazing how this happens, but that Georgia-Florida game is going to weigh big on whatever happens in that part of the conference. Florida showed it came back really strong, or at least tried to come back against Alabama. And from what I saw to them, they made some movable plays. Now they did lose, but they were in kind of a deficit. Nick Saban had those Alabama players really tie their shoestrings tight so no one lost a shoe. But I think Florida is more in a good direction. Georgia, and I will say this admittedly, beat up on a very dysfunctional South Carolina team. And that is just because South Carolina got out athleted. Georgia has great recruiting. They have great talent. They always have. But when they struggle against Clemson, they beat up on a very bad team. It's got to see how do they sort of go down the stretch. Do I think they'll roll through their schedule until they play Florida? Absolutely. But that's my thing, is I think Florida is the stronger of the two. Who do you think?
I think that the fact that Florida actually was able to come back a little bit against Alabama is very, very impressive. So let us not, take that lightly one bit. But if I were to actually guess right now, or not guess, but kind of give my thoughts on who really is in the driver's seat in the SEC East, I'd say Florida. Now, I do think that neither team, there's no team in the SEC East that's going to run away with it. Like Missouri could sneak up on somebody. Kentucky could sneak up on somebody. South Carolina could sneak up on Florida. So I think that there is still a lot of football to be played. So let's just be ready for a few wrenches thrown into the SEC East, because it's not as cut and dry.
Now, here's something that's not cut and dry either, but the media is getting a lot of hype and the talking heads. Who is a bigger team to shake up the SEC West? Texas A&M or Ole Miss?
Oh, Ole Miss, 100%. Everyone knows A&M's good. No no one's really giving, everyone knows Texas A&M is good, and no one really knows Ole Miss is good. They're knowing it now and they're learning it now. So I think, A&M, everyone knew that they were going to be good, even though they've lost their quarterback. So the potential for them to be good is a little bit decimated. So look out for Ole Miss to really make some noise over there in the SEC West.
Wanting to put it out there on their schedule, Ole Miss's lowest amount of points they've scored in a game is 43. Last week, they put up 61 points against a Tulane team that Oklahoma struggled to handle in their first game out of the season. So I agree with you. Ole Miss is definitely a credible threat. They play Alabama October 2nd, which is them coming off of a bye week. They're off this week. So
that's always a tough game for Alabama when they play Ole Miss. That's always tough.
So that's a 3:30 CBS game on Saturday, October 2nd. So we'll make sure to preview that next week a little bit more and have some things to digest.
Yeah.
Connor, I want to hit you with the top 6 rankings as we always do in college football. And then we can see if there's anything else you want to talk about. Right now in the rankings, you have Alabama number 1, Georgia number 2, Oregon is moved up to number 3, Oklahoma is 4, Iowa is 5, and Penn State has moved up 4 spots to be number 6.
So Alabama 1. Who'd you say was 2?
Georgia.
I don't agree with that.
I agree to not agree as well.
Oregon is 3. You said Oregon was 3?
Yep.
Oregon is 3. Who's 4?
Oklahoma.
Man, can we have number 1 and then other playoff participants?
It's a weird poll that
right.
Georgia, I feel like, is just in number 2 because there's no other one to make sense to put in there. Oregon is just because of the win against an Ohio State team, which is starting to have troubles. Ohio State sits at number 10, and I see them falling further. Oklahoma, I do not believe is a top 4 team. That is just the pre-Heisman hype. That is Spencer Rattler. Iowa, we love Iowa State on this show, so I can give them that they beat Iowa State and they're undefeated. And then Penn State, I will say that I believe that Bo Nix is a little bit, he's not horrible, but I think he's a little bit of an overrated college quarterback. The world's always kind of had a crush on him, and I don't know why. So it's an odd college football poll. Connor, is this a year that if Cincinnati really does a good job, could this be a good argument to put a group of 5 in, because these power 5s are not looking as convincing to be all hogging up the playoff spots?
An undefeated Cincinnati should get into the playoff over a 1-loss SEC team. And undefeated Cincinnati should get into the playoff over a 1-loss Pac-12 champion. So that would mean, Georgia, a undefeated Cincinnati. Undefeated is the critical term there, because, you got players that are just, not as good. I'm sorry. You're a Division I athlete, but there's a difference between playing Tulane and Eastern Carolina every week versus playing LSU and Auburn. And, I think that Cincinnati has to win and probably cover all of their games, to really be taken seriously. But if they do that, I could see a variety of circumstances in which I would take them over. I would take Cincinnati over a 1-loss ACC champion Clemson.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's all going to start with Cincinnati and how they, who are also on a bye week, knock out Notre Dame. They have to beat Notre Dame. They have to win, cover, and even probably triple cover over Notre Dame, and then play Temple. And then on October 16th, they need to handily beat a UCF who's coming up to them into Ohio. They have Tulane on their schedule, like you mentioned. they have this schedule in front of them to interact with the right teams properly in order to sort of push themselves into a number 4 spot.
No doubt.
Well, college football is exciting. This week, however, the schedule is kind of light on our college football schedule, looking at all the teams as I pull this up. Your big game for the evening on Saturday, Connor, kicking off at, where is the big game of the evening? One of your big games of the evening is North Carolina plays Georgia Tech on a night game. Cal plays Washington. But as far as that goes, ESPN is showing Tennessee and Florida at 7 o'clock, and I don't even see ABC's game. So this is definitely one of those. Oh, ABC's big game of the week is Oklahoma versus West Virginia. I like to liken that this is one of those weeks in college football to where if you've been ignoring your spouse because you've been glued to the couch for the past few weeks, this is that week that you, since it's getting a little fall weather, this is where you go that outdoor chore. Maybe you go antiquing. Maybe you go apple picking if you're in parts of the region. You go see some leaves change. But this is the week I think you can leave the house and run some errands. Maybe you do a little DIY project and refurb a china cabinet. What do you think?
No doubt, man. Yeah, this is about time for college football to have a down week. There's been a ton of great games right out of the chutes, and I think that with that, this is always the potential upset week. So be looking for an upset. It'll probably, I could see West Virginia giving Oklahoma everything they could handle. I could see a lot of early games, maybe not going the way that the favorites thought that they were going to go. So be looking out for that and be ready for just a really fun college football week. Even though it might be a good college football week to, go do the DIY candle shopping.
The DIY candle shopping, you know it well. Was that
no doubt? I do.
It is it's time for fourth quarter. As we close our show, we're going to go and talk about some NFL football. Some teams that are out there to sort of recognize is, I guess I'm never going to live this one down. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers must have watched our show because they just keep seeming to get better and better. And I know Tom Brady takes his haters to heart. I didn't realize I was one of those. But this Bucs team,
feel like you're so lucky.
He's proving me wrong. I feel like I should have been wearing a draft profile picture of Tom Brady when I gave my hot take last year. But this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team just shows no let up of nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, this Tampa Bay Bucs team's doing really well, and I think that the rest of the league is really playing catch up to them. Kind of period, point blank. A lot of good teams are 1-1 right now. So the fact that Tampa Bay is 2-0 definitely speaks a lot to what they're doing, and the fact that they were able to sort of boat race the Falcons there at the end of the game with a few pick sixes. Speaks to the complete nature of what they're doing.
Definitely speaks to the nature of what they're doing. On the total opposite side of the coin, Connor, do you think Zach Wilson needs to discover that the slant never fails? Because I'm sure watching Zach Wilson be quarterback is like watching whenever you play me in Madden whenever I'm trying to sling the pigskin around, especially his performance this past week.
Yeah, I think there's not a ton of really bad quarterbacks that are starting in the league right now, but Zach Wilson doesn't have enough juice to overcome all the deficiencies of the Jets.
Definitely a lot there. So Connor, I want your take on this one. Talking of quarterbacks, Justin Field had his first start. Of course, we know the Bears were a controversy, and this is their second time they've done this. Sign a quarterback in the offseason and then draft someone and then start him. Now they've moved on to Justin Fields the same way that they had moved on to quarterbacks before. So is it too soon to see Justin Fields on the field?
Yeah, that quarterback that you saw or mentioned from before was Nick Foles that they signed to start over Mitch Trubisky, just in case if you were wondering. But
Dang, it was Mike Glennon. Mike
no,
Glennon.
Nick last year.
But 2 years ago, it was Mike Glennon, and they drafted Mitchell Trubisky, was who I was referencing.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Nevertheless, no, I think that we can see Justin Fields. It's Matt Nagy is not totally letting giving all the reins to Justin Fields, which I think will be a really interesting story to follow. Even in the games that Justin Fields has been in there, it's been a little gimmicky. I know he's very athletic and can do a lot of things, but we'll see. Because the NFC North is so bad, I think that the Bears will have a chance to potentially compete for that division. They really just need to figure out who the starting quarterback is, because as the old adage goes, if you have 2 starting quarterbacks, you have 0 starting quarterbacks.
That's very true. Very, very true. And another one in regards to starting quarterbacks, the Carolina Panthers beat the New Orleans Saints 26-7. 1 week ago, we were all saying that Jameis Winston is fixed. He's cured. He's all bettered. But Jameis Winston went 11 for 22, 111 yards, and 2 interceptions. Also this week, the Green Bay Packers won, and they beat the Detroit Lions. So here's a twisted what-if scenario for you. Is Jameis Winston worse than we all think he is, or is Green Bay just worse than we think they are, and somehow Carolina in that mix, that would make Carolina good?
So your question is, Rutledge, was the New Orleans Week 1 an aberration? Was the Green Bay Week 1 an aberration? And how do we feel about Carolina?
Yes.
Man.
Carolina's 2-0.
Carolina is 2-0. I think that Carolina could go out and surprise some folks. I heard an interesting stat that Matt Rule, as a head coach in the NFL, since his time being a head coach, has the fewest 3-and-outs in all of NFL since he became the head coach, which is very critical for a guy who's trying to throw the ball around a lot. No, I think that Jameis is going to throw a lot of picks. That's what happens with Jameis. Definitely the Saints are not going to be the kind of high-powered team that they were last year or previous years. I think that it's more likely to see a high Packers ceiling than a low Saints floor, because I don't think Jameis Winston is absolutely horrible, but I think that it is more likely to see a 500 Saints team, and a 500 Packers team than a 13-3 or 13-4 Packer team, and a 1-16 Saints team.
I agree with you on that. I don't think the Packers are going to go and win as far as they will, but I will add to your point in saying a 500 Packers team wins their division and is a division champs going into the playoffs with how bad the NFC North is.
Mm-hmm.
I think a 500 Saints team is going to sit at home as we get into January and February, because I think you're with that the Carolina Panthers are going to be good. And of course, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are not slowing down.
No, they are not.
Connor, what NFL story have you been tracking this week?
Man, so many. I think you hit the nail on the head with the Bucks, and the NFC South has a lot of great storylines. I think one of the things that I've been following and just very interested in is Tyrod Taylor over there in Houston. The Texans were kind of left for dead. I know Houston hasn't necessarily come flying out of the gates, but Tyrod Taylor at least has not been horrible.
He has not been horrible.
The Texans' problems are not due to Tyrod Taylor.
They are not, right? The big problem, though, with Tyrod Taylor is he recently was placed, as of this morning, he was placed on the IR as he was
Oh no.
as he was injured, and they're giving the nod to the start to Davis Mills, their rookie quarterback.
Did you
So-
mispronounce David? Ding.
Never mind. It also showing one day ago that Watson will not be active even if Tyrod Taylor is out, reported on ESPN. He will not be active this coming Thursday night. Tyrod Taylor is day to day. Of course, he got an MRI. Now it's proving he's on the injured list. So more controversy in Houston, who's definitely left for dead. Tyrod Taylor injured his left hamstring in the first half of the Texans' 31-21 Week 2 loss to the Cleveland Browns, and was replaced by Mills in the second half. The Texans used their top pick, a third-round selection on Mills in April, as ESPN writes. So he will miss at least the next 3 games. So we'll see how that sort of rebounds for them in their division, which, if you want to talk a division that's wide open and bad, the AFC South is beyond wide open and extremely bad.
That's so true.
You know, a division that's seen the likes of Dan Marino and Peyton Manning and JJ Watt and the Music City Miracle is now going to see where their division has collectively won 2 games over 4 teams.
Craziness. Yeah, the AFC South is probably the worst division in football. No doubt about it.
No doubt, no doubt. Well, Connor, I feel like this is our show for the evening.
I know. We've made it happen. Great job.
We really did, right? You deserve a lobster.
I might go find one.
You deserve a
The
lobster.
bar might be closing at 10, so
Oh.
I've got 8 minutes to go get a lobster.
You deserve a lobster. You're buying.
Okay, I'm down.
All right. In college football, I want to do a couple picks. First of all, big ranked game for the week is Notre Dame, Wisconsin. Who's your team for that one?
I'm picking Wisconsin. I think Notre Dame has had a lot of close calls with not good teams, and Wisconsin is going to be probably the best team Notre Dame's played.
I am also going to pick Wisconsin, and I'm going to join you with picking West Virginia over Oklahoma.
Well, hold on. I would pick Oklahoma over West Virginia. Close.
Show
Very,
integrity.
very close.
Show
I'm picking
integrity.
Win.
Okay. Coming out there at the gate, we're gonna look at the NFL. Let's have just for fun. We need one. Okay, here's one I want you to pick this week: Saints versus Patriots.
Ooh, I'm going to go
New England, 3
Patriots.
points.
I think Bill Belichick is going to eat Jameis Winston alive.
I'm also going to go Patriots. And then this other one, I don't know why this isn't the Sunday night game. It should be. They should have shifted this. The Sunday night game is Packers 49ers. That's not going to be as good as this one. But on the schedule, 4:25 p.m. on Fox on Sunday, Bucks versus Rams.
Ooh, I think Tampa Bay goes 3-0.
I also think I see Tampa going 3-0 as well, but I will take that it's only going to be a 1-point game.
Oh, very, very close.
Very close. Well, Connor, any closing thoughts?
You know, be ready to always eat lobster.
I agree. Time for lobster, everyone. Thank you for coming out. We did not mention before we go, we have not mentioned Daddle's Coffee yet today, but get your 15% off with promo code FSS. Get out there, get you some Daddles. Subscribe to us on YouTube and find our podcast.
See ya.